TV18.
Three earthquakes in less than 3 weeks. Fear and a grim reminder of nature's fury. Lives lost, families destroyed. Loss of property as yet unaccounted for. Survivors struggling for basic necessities. Rescue workers helping and helpless. Dealing with disaster is never easy, but deal we must.
This week, Money, Money, Money remembers all of those who have lost their lives and suffered in Nepal, and our two experts, Gaurav Mashruwala and Harshvardhan Roongta, joined forces with us this week to help us understand how you can insulate yourself and your family from implications if something like this were to ever happen again, as well how you can give back to society and help those who are caught in the midst of this human tragedy. Gaurav, Harshvardhan, thanks very much for being a part of this. I want to actually start with you, Gaurav, because, as difficult as it may be to deal with a tragedy like this, for people who are a little bit far removed, like say us, the biggest concern is that the kind of help that you may want to extend sometimes doesn't reach those people. What is the best way to actually contribute in an event like this?
So obviously money is one way, and you just kind of make a donation or a charity, or I'll probably say giving it back to society. It's not a charity. There are a lot of items that are needed in terms of healthcare items, food. If it's a region like Nepal or something, it's cold, so blankets, etc. There are a lot of stuff that's needed, and there are a lot of NGOs as well as government does various kind of work. There are a lot of intermediaries who do that, and you can utilize their services to ensure that this happens. Lot many times we've also heard people who themselves want to go, but they're not allowed to because this area is protected. A lot of other things can come up, so it's not prudent personally to go because there could be epidemics coming, there could be aftershocks coming. But using these NGOs, taking their assistance or supporting them, which in turn reaches out to people there, is the best way to do it.
But one of the other concerns that arises is that should you go for an international NGO or should you go for a local body who's trying to help? Would they be better placed to perhaps understand the need of the people there?
Well, Sumera, if you see, the major concern that people have is whether what they're contributing reaches to the right people. Now, we've seen in the past that if you've made some kind of donations to particular organizations, or you've given some product, you've made donations in kind, wherein you've given blankets, you've given clothes, or you've given food grains. The concern is whether it will reach to the right people or whether it will be taken away in between. So what I would suggest and what I prefer is that you go through formalized organizations, especially governments. Now, if I look at India, for instance, if you need to make a contribution in monetary terms, I think the Prime Minister National Relief Fund is a most secure kind of donation that you can make, and in which there is no kind of any leakages in that particular fund. Now, answering the query about whether you should choose international fund, NGOs or a local one, it obviously would be more prudent to contribute to a local one because you know the pedigree. You can at least go back and find out what has been happening with whatever you've donated.
Just one more point, sorry, is that you need to be careful because, for example, PM Relief Fund money will not be utilized in Nepal. That money has to be utilized within the territory of India.
Okay.
So just be careful on those. If you want to support if you want to support Nepal, then you will have to look at either government bodies which are going to do it or NGOs which are going to go internationally and do it, because we are talking about a different country. So PM Relief Fund will be used completely for the rehabilitating people in say Bihar or UP or wherever this problem has occurred.
Okay, and Harshvardhan raised another important point, which is basically do your homework before you contribute. Okay, so if I was to choose an organization or an NGO, which is the best way for me to actually go and figure out which is the NGO that I should have selected?
So one is the website that I spoke about before the show, and is Know Your NGO is one of them, but I'm sure there are a couple of others who not only compile the balance sheets, because balance sheet numbers are one thing, but they simplify it. So they will tell you that out of the total corpus that these NGOs have received in past, how much is actually utilized for the end use, how much are utilized for administration, what are the pay scales, There are some NGOs which raise money and support local NGOs. Now, I'm not saying what is good or bad. There could be a situation whereby an NGO is paying hefty salaries, but they are more efficient because they have qualified, trained people. There are some NGOs which would say that no, we are not going to pay, we have all the volunteers, but they may not have the infrastructure. So it's not right to say this is good or that is good, or NGO which is just collecting money and supporting local NGOs, or NGOs which are actually working. But you need to be aware and you will have to take a call. So there will always be some grey area. It will not be straight away clear. But as you rightly said, do your homework before choosing an NGO. So at least you know that the purpose for which you have given money and the manner in which you want it to be utilized, that's the way it will be done.
Okay, and my next question, I want both of you to actually help us understand, because as and when a tragedy takes place, initially there's this flood of relief that comes, okay, so whether it's cash or kind or any sort of help, there are people there assisting them in the rehabilitation. 1 week later, 10 days later, a month later, 2 months later, these are still people who haven't been able to get their life back on track, even 2-3 months later. Should one give way to emotion and contribute in the first leg of the relief work, or should one actually wait and when the relief and the money is dying out, sort of try and help them?
Well, what I would suggest is, immediately after a calamity takes place, there is immediate relief work that is required. So, undoubtedly there is large sums of money that is required immediately. Then there is also, you need, monetary, non-monetary kind of donations as well, because you need to get back onto your feet. You need medicines which are immediately after the calamity. You need clothes, you need food grains. So definitely there is a need for immediate relief to come after the calamity. And as you said, yes, over a period of time, of course, these will start fading out. But if you've given it to an organization, to an NGO, to a government body, they will ensure that money is not only completely utilized immediately, but they will obviously span it out over a period of time. And eventually money has to keep coming in. Everything is going to be dependent based on the flow of money that comes in. Now, whether you donate it immediately and then it is used over a period of time, or you give it after some time, it's an individual choice.
So I guess he has covered most of it, so I don't want to repeat, but then few other points that you may want to look at it is, there are a lot of these groups and NGOs which end up adopting a village or a taluka or a district who would work maybe later on. So apart from what he has said and look into all those, if you are looking at saying I also want to work towards rehabilitation, then start looking out for those. Those options are also available.
I don't want to sound insensitive, but the intent over here is clearly to help those in need. But there are also some tax breaks that the person contributing can also avail. So it's not entirely an outgo. So what exactly, what is the quantum of tax breaks that a person
So depending on where and which organization, whether it's government or whatever, so there's section 80G. It's predominantly here, because otherwise on regular basis there are also some research and development where you get 100% reduction, so we are not talking about it. Section 80G reductions are available, 50% or 100% of the donations, and why not even look at that? There's nothing wrong, because you could end up contributing more. Here if I just decide that I just want to do 10,000 rupees and I've factored in that, look, X amount of money I'm going to pay over tax. Now that I'm saving, the tax money can also be added to the amount of money that I'm giving it back, and add it and give it more. So there's nothing insensitive about not looking at tax. It's perfectly fine. Just give that much more money.
Yeah, fair enough. That makes sense actually. But we need to take a quick break on that note. We'll come back in a bit. Up ahead, how can you financially insulate yourself and your family in the event that a natural disaster was to take place? More on that in a bit. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're with Money, Money, Money. Dealing with disaster is never easy, but one can definitely minimize the financial implications by planning ahead. And our two experts, Harshvardhan Roongta and Mashruwala, are helping us do just that this week. So we've spoken a little bit about how you can give back to society, but God forbid if the disaster was to strike you or your family. Let me start with the most obvious first. Let's tackle that, life insurance. Is it enough? Do all life insurances cover all sorts of natural disasters, or does one need any add-ons?
Well, Sumana, when we talk about life insurance, it covers death due to any reason, including suicide after 1 year of taking the policy. So let's understand, if an individual was to pass away due to natural reason, I mean, it could be because of age-related, could be because of medical reasons, or because of a natural calamity. The death has occurred. So a life insurance policy kicks in and a payment will be made to the family. So there is no doubt about that part.
Okay, and these include even terrorist attacks?
Absolutely.
So one is loss of life, one is that you could be injured. Do you need an accident cover additionally? And also the loss of property that you may suffer. How do you prepare for that?
So apart from these, there's one point, this contingency fund, which we always recommend, and keep certain amount of money at cash. So something like this, you will not have it, but say if it's floods or something, cash at home will at least allow you to buy a bottle of milk next day and vegetables if it's available. So that point needs to be taken care of. In terms of property, yes, there are property insurances available. You could have a householder's policy, house owner's policy. The general experiences that claims that get paid aren't that great in terms of deductions, etc. Premiums are also not very high. So you must keep in mind that yes, you need to have these kind of covers, because these, whenever there is a natural calamity, there is a certain amount of financial loss, and to that extent, whatever cover that you have taken, any amount that comes back to you is definitely beneficial. So you must look at that.
We've seen that, in the event that a calamity was to take place, people are rushed to the hospitals. Hospitals themselves don't come forward and, press the patient for charges. Does one really require a medical emergency? I mean, yes, for old age and, your daily ailments and so on and so forth, but for a medical, for a calamity in particular, is a medical insurance really required?
Well, Sunera, if you look at medical insurance, yes, you need to have it, whether there is a natural calamity or no. There is no doubt about, and there's no two questions about that fact. Now the fact arises, what triggers off in case of a natural calamity? Of course, there are going to be medical expenses. Now, in most cases, we've seen governments have come forward, the hospitals have come forward, wherein they have, offered to foot the bill of the treatment that the affected is undertaking right now. However, there are going to be there could be recurring expenses even in future. Like government comes up and says everybody admitted right now, nobody is going to be charged. Fair enough. But you could basically be affected. You could be disabled. You could have an injury or an ailment which requires a revisiting the hospital again after 6 months or every 1 year. Now there is going to be some expense on that, which is going to be basically taken care of by your medical policy.
And Gaurav, we spoke about contingency earlier. One is that how do you access even an ATM? Like say in a situation like Nepal, there are no ATMs available. Additionally, a lot of the documents, your ATM cards, debit cards, insurance policies, house papers, all of those may be destroyed or lost forever. How does one actually, get around to even using your contingency fund at that time? And the second part to my question being, what happens if all your documents and cards are lost?
So one is yes, that's why we recommend keep certain amount of cash, but so many times even that's not accessible.
Exactly.
So there is no alternative. So I mean, if it's just an act of God, or for that matter even terrorist attack, I mean, there are certain situations where you are just completely helpless, and that's the way it is. So there is no foolproof financial plan ever. I mean, that's the way it is. Live with it. That's number one. Now, when it comes to documents, there are three categories of documents. There are some which are destroyed and just can't be replaced. So, for example, house documents. If it's an original title paper, and if you have kept at home, ideally you should keep it in bank locker.
Which is not safe either in the event of an earthquake.
So, unless we reach a stage where you have digital, and which will come soon, but till such time, you're living with it. So then, to that extent, you lodge a police complaint, you registrar, and then whatever that you can salvage, whatever you can get back and get duplicate issued. So that's number one. That's taken care. Then there are certain documents where duplicates can be issued. So, for example, a driving license, a passport, or whatever. And each country, each authority, each region would have its procedure. Some will require a police complaint. Some will require some kind of other complaint lodged with a local authority which says yes, this part has been affected, and based on that the duplicates one issued. So then do that. And there are some where you contact the issuing authority straight away. So you mentioned about debit card or credit card or something. Just lodge a complaint with the issuing bank and say, look, this is what has happened, and invariably they issue a duplicate. But now situations like earthquake, floods, tsunami, where even they can't read, because exactly, it's human being who's interacting. It may take a time, but then you will get it back. So some which can't be replaced at all, you get a duplicate, just lodge a complaint, ensure those documents are in place. Some where a duplicate can be issued, take appropriate steps, and somewhere it can be, just take it.
I suppose you can never totally get everything right, but this is a good way actually. You can at least start the process of getting things sorted out. It's time for another quick break. We'll come back in just a bit. Our two experts are going to stay with us, and up next we'll tell you how to deal financially in the immediate aftermath if a tragedy has struck. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching Money, Money, Money. A natural disaster or calamity will strike without warning, and therefore it becomes imperative to be financially prepared for a situation like this at all times. Gaurav Mashruwala and Harshvardhan Roongta are two experts this week who are helping us do just this. So we've spoken a bit about giving it back to society. We've spoken about how you can prepare well in advance. But if a disaster were to strike, one already has the mental stress of having perhaps lost near and dear ones. We may not be using our mental provisions to its entirety. What are the steps that one can take now so that if a disaster were to strike, Gaurav, that things work like a well-oiled machinery?
So contingency fund is what we spoke about, and that's one. You need to have that. So one is that cash and certain amount of money in savings account and fixed deposit, because usually it takes about 90 days till you come to terms with these major scars that has happened and you start living a normal life. There could be instances where there could be support coming in terms of money coming from government or various places in terms of compensation and all. So that needs to be looked into, but that will take certain amount of time, because then your banks have to be operational, the money to come in, and you start utilizing, you start taking prudent decisions. But yes, that needs to be done. There will be a lot of instances where others will come and kind of help you stand up on your own feet. So in fact, that's more trickier, because what will happen is that the aftermath, immediate reactions, support, rehabilitate, great, but thereafter you have to get back to normalcy, and that takes months and years. And that's where financial prudence in terms of my requirement, revise my goal, how do I invest the money that's coming, ensure that there is no wrong advice that's coming to me, ensure that I'm investing in a manner which is beneficial to me. All those things, change the titles if they are dead. So if it's jointly held policies or if they're jointly held accounts, ensure that the first applicant's name is deleted. All those things has to be done, should be done. It'll take a little time before you come to terms, but then life has to go on.
Yeah, that's true actually, and you've raised a very important point, which is the government compensation that may come in, because very often, many of these far-flung areas, people may be uneducated, not really aware of how that money should be utilized, or in some cases even invested. There may be some touts who might come in. So, how does a person like that actually use this compensation money?
Well, in case you're talking about a situation wherein compensation comes in and as announced by the government, the first thing is it comes in after a lag. It does not come in immediately. There are certain procedures to be followed. Their identity has to be established, because compensation is given out to the kin of the deceased. But the whole idea is, how do you identify the kin of the deceased? So you have to have procedures in place which weeds out all the kind of frauds that will possibly take care. So this takes time. It takes time before the money actually lands into the hands of the beneficiary. Then the question arises, how do you go about managing that money? So as of today, there is no formal methodology which basically is adopted, wherein the funds are also diverted into a bank FD or so. There's no formal methodology. However, there needs to be some kind of process in place wherein a city collector could be appointed as as an authority who would basically take a decision if the compensation needs to be paid out in absolute form in the hand of the kin of the beneficiary, or it could be going into a fixed deposit, the interest of which would be going to the beneficiaries. So I guess this is more of a policy decision on an rather than individual cases. Otherwise, yes, we would suggest that you need to possibly make yourself accessible to a financial planner who is more qualified. But I guess this is too much to delve into at this juncture.
Does claiming your insurance etc. Automatically kick in the affected areas?
Easier. So lot many times we have seen this, that insurance companies relax the rules, government encourages. In fact, I know that 26 July when it happened in Mumbai, RBI had given directive to banks that if people want certain amount of loan, ease the document process and release the funds immediately. So government does its bits. We have problems, government has its misses also, there is corruption, we know all those things, but there are also good things that government does, and couple of these things do come in.
So there will be disasters for sure, but I think we can certainly take heart from the fact that if it were to strike, one hopes that everybody around you, whether it's your family, friends, financial planners, the government, banks, local bodies, NGOs, that everybody actually rallies around the people affected. Gaurav, Harshvardhan, thanks very much for joining in and being a part of our show. So that's about all we have for you this week. Thanks very much for watching. Viewers, do remember to keep writing to us at money@network18online.com. Let us know your feedback, and you can also find us on Twitter. Write to CNBC TV18 News. Use the hashtag money, and do remember to also log on to YouTube to catch this episode. With that, we'll wrap up. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again next week.